Hello, and welcome to the Forecaster Learning Center. This video is a unique hands-on beginner's guide with a sample data set to help you begin to build your Power BI skills. The sample data set can be found on our website, forecasterlab.com, under the Power BI tab. The content of this video and training was developed and presented by John Bauer, a member of the Denver chapter of the FENG. John is the lead financial analyst, cloud, for AT&T. If you are not a member of the Financial Executive Networking Group, the FANG, go to our website, forecasterlab.com. There is a FANG section where you can learn all about it. Like this video, it is free and for you. This video will help you understand how the software works. You can also follow along with a sample data set to develop your first Power BI dashboard. It's our mission at Forecaster to support the development of financial leaders of small to mid-sized companies across the U.S. In other words, we are here for you. Are you ready for the journey? Okay then, let's go.
The first tab is Why Power BI. The next is the RDBMS 101. The third is Orientation. Everything to the right of that is going to be some sample data tables that I prepared that we can play around with. Starting out with kind of why Power BI. For starters, the desktop software itself is free. Anybody can go out and download Power BI to their desktop and start playing with data and analyzing data. Power BI, it's virtually limitless how many rows of data you could store. That makes it ideal for serving as sort of a surrogate data warehouse. It combines the elements of relational database management with charting. And I'm going to show you that RDBMS in a minute. But that's basically how you get different data sets that you may have that don't talk to each other today, but share a common element or way that you can relate them. That's where Power BI gets really powerful. It is a Microsoft product, so it has the same sort of look and feel of other Microsoft products that we're all using. It's a poor man's data warehouse. You can store a lot of data and archive a lot of data and then have it at your fingertips when you want to recall it. I've been using it sort of as a data repository for a lot of business processes that I manage. There's a whole user community out there of people using Power BI. So it's really easy when you get stuck. You just go out to Google and you type in the problem you're having. There's a whole forum and a whole community of people who've run into the same issue as you. And typically there's a solution out there that you can find how to get through that sticking point that you have. And the user community also is very vocal on upgrades. When Microsoft pushes a new upgrade to Power BI, they take into account the user community input. You can go out to the Microsoft store and you can download custom visuals that may not be in the default series of charts and graphs that are available when you download the desktop software. And then finally, for several years now, Gartner has been doing a analytics and BI platform ranking. And they've got this year, 2021, Microsoft as by far the leader. They used to be a lot closer to Tableau. They're starting to stretch the gap here between Microsoft and Tableau. Relational database management is where you have a lot of data elements, but they don't necessarily talk, or you want to augment your explanation of that data. There's something called a star schema, which is an architecture of how you architect your data. I created a fictitious company, which is a snowblower manufacturer. And I've got some data. So here's my data right here. Pretend this is a data set that's coming from one of your ERP systems or a POS system, where you have maybe an order number that comes from your source system. And that order number is going to have like an order date, maybe a customer number or ID, a product ID or number, a location ID. And then you're going to have maybe your units sold and your amount of revenue. That would be called a structured set of data, meaning it's columns and rows, just like Excel. Anytime you hear or I mention structured data, that means you have a set of data that's clean and it's organized in columns and rows, just like an Excel tab. So this would be an example of a data set you may be bringing in. Anything that explains the who, what, when, and where of that order is called an attribute. When the order was taken, that's an attribute. That's a when. The customer that it was sold to, that's a who. Product that was sold, that's a what. Those are your attributes. And then you have what are called measures. And your measures are going to be how many did you sell and what's your sale amount. Measures are always something that you're going to mathematically do something with. You're going to aggregate them, sum them, divide them, etc. So if you were to envision this as a set of data coming out of one of your source systems, we're going to load that type of data in what we call a fact table. A fact table alone is just going to tell you, I have a whole bunch of orders with a whole bunch of ID numbers that I don't know what customer ID XYZ 123 is. I haven't memorized every SKU of every product I sell. But that's where then your surrounding tables, the points of your star, it's called a star schema because it sort of resembles a star, roughly. And at the center of the star is your facts, your data. Surrounding points of your star is what are called dimension tables. Dimension tables are the who, the what, the when, and the where specifics of your data. So you say, I have a customer and his ID is this. You can have a table that says, well, that customer ID is this customer name, product ID. Well, what is that product? Okay. I may have a size and a color descriptor for that ID. And those tables help take a lot of data that you would have to have memorized all these IDs. And it helps tell you who the customer is, Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, what the product color and size was, where in the country you sold it, etc. Each dimension table has what's called a key or a primary key. And that is what relates, going to this reference to relational database. The way these tables relate or talk is they share the location ID. See, there's a connection there, there's a join. In SQL speak, there's joins, the inner join, right, outer join, et cetera, which you may have heard. I'm going to do a lot of cool stuff. I'm going to tell Power BI how this table of that 11,000 rows of data, we're going to be able to do some really cool charting and graphing, because I'm going to also load the ability for Power BI to know what this stuff actually means. This is the key. What does it mean by cubing data? Cubing the data is another way to explain this concept where you're taking the who, the what, the when, the where. Your sides of your cube represent your different three-dimensional attributes, the what, the where, the who, and that is where the term cube comes from. The first time opening Power BI, you're going to see these different ways to add data to your report: Excel, a SQL cube, and maybe some other source. We're not going to use this middle part. I'm going to show you how to do it with this get data up here. You're going to have a ribbon up here, just like Excel. You can click the home and there will be these functions, and then there's an insert with other functions and modeling. There are 3 screen views that we're going to be toggling kind of back and forth between. The first, what looks like a little column chart. Well, that's self-explanatory, sort of. That's where we're going to be actually building charts and graphs. The next one down is your data view. So like, this is a table I'm going to bring in. This is what it would look like in Excel. It's going to look just like this, but instead of in Excel, it's going to be in Power BI. And then lastly, down here, that's called the model view. And that's where you're actually connecting tables, joining tables, and creating your relationships so that you can start to do all this cool stuff. This section that says fields, that's where you're going to see each table that you've brought into Power BI. So then to the left of that is your visualizations. You have this whole little paint palette of different charts and graphs. An important thing in there also is you've got the thing I've listed as 7. That's where you're dragging and dropping in your data fields into the various values, x-axis, y-axis, those types of things. And then one next to it, which looks like a paint roller, that's because that's where you format. And then finally, there's a filters. You can then do further filtering and go, well, I only want to see red, or I only want to see large snow blowers, or I only want to see 1 month. You can do those types of things in the filter. These little arrows here are how you can collapse and make your field a little bigger here. Where we're going to go first is the data view. And over here to the right, I have fields. I'm going to start loading data. So we're going to go to get data. Now, just for illustrative purposes, I'm going to click the drop down button just so you can see all the different data sources. We're just keeping it simple today, and we're just pulling some data from Excel. More sophisticated ways is you can have a SQL server behind the scenes, where if your company has a SQL database and you have data in there you want to access, maybe it's an ERP system, and then you can pull from SQL. You can pull in a text or CSV file. More, if you want to pull in a JSON or Python API script or import something from the web. You're going to click Excel for your data source, and it's going to take you into a pop-up browser screen. Hopefully you've saved that Excel spreadsheet somewhere. So I'm going to click open. The first 5 there, we're going to import those tables. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the fact table. I'm going to click that one. And you'll see got columns and rows, got order date, customer ID. This is my raw data. This is for my fact table. Don't anybody hit load, even though it's gold and it's really inviting to click the gold button. You'll see next to load, there's a transform data button. The best practice for Power BI is to always transform your data. I'm going to go against that because I know this is clean and I'm not going to have a problem. I'm going to click dim customer. That one's good. Dim goal. That one's good. Dim location. That one's good. And you can go ahead and just load those. I'm still in the data view here, which looks like a spreadsheet. You'll see to your right fields, dim customer, dim goal, dim location, fact table. Those should have all loaded. I want to go back and grab that one dimension table. So you're going to go back up to get data again. Again, Excel. Go into that workbook once again. The one we didn't load was dim product. Go ahead and check the dim product. Oh man, I don't want column 1, column 2, column 3. I want my header to be product ID, product size, and product color. So to fix that, when you hit transform data, it's going to take you into what's called the query editor. Query editor is super cool, and I don't want to gloss over it. What's great about query editor is there's a lot of cool stuff you can do here. This is where you clean up data, remove duplicates, create different rules that you might want to apply. But the first thing I want to do here is I want to change this column 1, column 2, column 3. I have to go up here, and there's a little drop-down box here that I click, and I select use the first row of my data or my table as headers. And it's going to get rid of that column 1, column 2, column 3, and replace it with the headers I want. So the other thing I want to call attention to is if I click this, this will say text. There's a drop-down box I can click, and there's all these different data types. I can have a text, I can have a number, I can have a date. I'm going to click on fact table. If you click any column in here and right click, there's all these different things you can do in that column. You can remove errors, you can remove duplicates. If I knew I had duplication in my data, I could cleanse my data right here. It would register that action over here under applied steps. And then going forward, anytime I refresh the data with new data, this remove duplicates would automatically be saved over here in applied steps as kind of like a load rule. And it would do that for you. You never have to do it again. Query editor is very, very cool. There's so many things you can do with it. And it's really good for automating your processes, automating your loads, creating rules, cleansing your data, cleansing errors, all that stuff. I'm happy with everything I have here. So I'm going to go up here. You should have a button that says close and apply. Now the cool thing, I click my fact table, just as if I was viewing this in a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. Here's what I just loaded. I brought in that tab, and here it is. I have columns and rows. Here, I don't like this format of date. Personally, I want to make that a little easier to look at. It's hurting my eyes. So I can click that column. Up here, I have format. I'm going to click this drop-down box. I want month, date, day, year. Another thing you can do is sales amount. You want that in dollars. You can select that column, and right away up here, there's a formatting field. I can select this drop-down, and I can select United States dollars. This is where you have to do that. Once we get into the charting and graphing, you can't just click the data in the chart and change it to dollars. You have to do it in the tables. Quantity sold, I'm going to go ahead and put a column separator in there. Click the column, select the comma separator. Now here's the cool thing. I'm going to go into the model view. I conveniently gave you guys dimension tables that are already linked because Power BI will auto detect any existing relationships you might have. you can see Power BI has already auto-detected that my customer table has a customer ID field. So does my fact table. It created a join. One means one, asterisk means many. So I have a one-to-many relationship. Dim product. My product, I have a one-to-many. I have one product ID that has multiple instances of occurrence because I've sold multiple quantities of that product ID to multiple customers in multiple months. So that's why there's a one-to-many. I have a dim goal out here, which I'm going to use for a chart that I want to show you. That doesn't have a relationship, and that's okay for now. It doesn't need a relationship. Let's say I brought this in, and dim product ID, and fact table product ID should have joined here, but didn't. You go to manage relationships. So this button here, I'm going to click manage relationships. And here you can see a list of every relationship that I currently have. The relational is relationship. So this is all kind of comes together, the BI concepts of this. This is why this is a relational database management system combined with a charting and graphing software all in one convenient software. That's Power BI. If auto detect doesn't work, you can go, I want a new relationship. First table you want to join, click the drop down. You'd say dim product. I want to connect my dim product table. My product ID is going to be my unique column that they share. And I'm going to go and I want to connect that to my fact table. And it automatically grade that out because it says, oh, yeah, okay, you want to connect these. And then this would be a one-to-many relationship. So now the fun starts. We have imported our data tables. We went in and made sure either created our relationships or made sure we had relationships. This is the coolest part of Power BI. This is why it's so freaking cool. It's amazing what you can do when you cube your data like this. Now let's have some fun. I'm going to go into the report view, and now I'm going to start building. My fields is already uncollapsed, and you can see here are the tables we brought in. Here's our selection of different cool charts and graphs we can pick. I'm in the screen where I can drag and drop into this dotted box, different things, which you're going to see in a minute. Or I can select the paint roller and I can be formatting it. So now we're going to start building a dashboard. We're going to build this sample dashboard right here. Give me a little section of my total units sold over the year, how much my revenue was, my average unit price over that time. Do a little radial graph of how much did I achieve of my budget or my goal. I'm going to do a pie chart. I'm going to do just a little overtime seasonality kind of thing. And I'm going to do the heat map. You go into your paint palette here. If you go to this 1, 2, 3, 4 rows down, fourth in, there's something called a card. Click the card and a little box will show up. In that card, I want to show my unit quantity sold. Once I clicked the card, you'll see I have a field and it says add data field here and there's a dotted box. I need to drag and drop what I want to show up in that box. All my measures are in my fact table. So I'm going to uncollapse my fact table. I want quantity sold. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can just check quantity sold or you can drag it. I'm just going to go ahead and drag quantity sold into my field for the card. And now it gives me, I sold 20,000 snowblowers. You can see just like a picture or something in Excel, you can go to the lower right here and your arrow will become a little double arrow and you can play around with the size of that. I want to make it a little smaller. I'm just collapsing that a little bit. And again, there's a lot of ways you can format this. For now, I'm going to keep it simple. I sold 20,000 units. Is before you go and go grab your next visual, make sure you click anywhere in your blank canvas. Just click. You'll see my card deselected. If you forget to do that and then go pick pie chart, it's going to override your card and change it to a pie chart. I'm going to go back and grab another card, create a new card. While it's selected, you can take your arrow and move it around. I want to move it right next to my quantity sold. This time, I want my sale amount. So I'm just going to take my sale amount, drag it in there, 12 million. Now, if you recall, going back to my data view and back to my fact table, I went ahead and already selected that column and changed it to dollars. If I hadn't done that, this would just say 12 and there wouldn't be a dollar sign in it. If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, there's something called a slicer. You can select slicer and you could say, go grab your order date. Let's say you go, I just want January's quantity sold and sales. I can click that. And now it filters on just January's quantity sold. For now, I'm going to delete that. I don't want to do that. I really want to showcase what you can do in Power BI. And that's one of the cool things is the slicer. I want a line and stacked column chart. My sales by month split between my two products. I'm going to select line and stacked column chart. It's the second row down, fourth in. And now versus the card where all I had to do was fill in one dotted box, I have several things I need to drop in here. Each column is going to be a month of sales. I need to tell it what my axis is. Column series is going to be how I split this stack into two pieces. The shared axis is the x-axis I want my date to be. I'm going to take my date hierarchy. I'm going to drag it under my shared axis. And I don't want all this stuff. I don't want year. I don't want quarter. I don't want day. I just want month. And then I need to tell it, since this is a stacked column, I want to tell it, oh, and tell me how much each product type made up of that. Now, I could drag product ID in there, but what's it going to do? It's going to give me product A, product B. Oh, okay, that's okay. But I don't want that. I want to know small and large. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to go up to dim product, my product dimension table. This is why I brought that in the first place. I don't want to give my CFO a chart that says product A and product B and have to tell him or her, hey, product A is, this size. I'm going to go and grab that attribute I created, and I'm going to drag product size under my column series. Now I've got large and small rather than the product ID. I want to add values to that. I have a line value I can do also. When I add labels, it's going to give a label to each half of this column, but it's not going to give me a total. So what I'm going to do is go grab my sales amount again and add it to my line value. Now I have my total sales is the orange line, and my split between sizes are my two different shades of blue column. Just next to this screen, I'm going to go to my format. And here I can format all kinds of different things. For one thing, I want data labels. So I'm going to go data labels on and click that on. And now you can see I've got a total by month. The other thing I want to do is I want to center my legend. I don't like it to the left here. So I'm going to center my legend. So I click the down drop and go top center. I'm going to turn off the title on my product size. A good thing to see here, if you've already noticed, in Excel, everything I just did, you do in the chart. You can select the chart, you can click the legend and go up and hit center. And you do all that stuff in the chart. In Power BI, you can't do that. Another thing I want to do is I want to 1, 2, 3, 4 down, 3 in. I want a gauge. So I'm going to select this gauge. And the gauge is going to tell me how much of my budget or goal or target did I achieve. So in this case, I have a value. The value is going to be my sale amount. So I'm going to drag sale amount into value. So my 12 million shows up. And I want to give it a maximum. Under dim goal, you can hit the drop down on dim goal, you'll see sale amount. So I loaded a goal or budget or target. So I'm going to take sale amount from my goal table that I brought in. I'm going to drag that under maximum value. So now I can say, hey, I achieved $12 million of my budget of $15 million. Now, again, this is a great learning opportunity. The 15 isn't in dollars. Well, why not? Well, I didn't tell it in the data model, I didn't go to goal and click that column and say, make that dollars. But now I went into the raw data, made that dollars, and now I've got $12 million sold of a $15 million goal or target. 3 down, 4 in, I'm going to grab a pie chart. I'm going to take quantity sold and I'm going to drag that into my values. Again, what's the value I want to chart in my pie chart? Put quantity sold in my values. Now you'll see the entire 12,000 units sold is making up the entire pie. I haven't told Power BI yet how I want to slice it. So here under details, I can now go, okay, I want it by customer. Now I could just load a customer ID in there, but that defeats the purpose of why I loaded customer name. So I don't want a customer ID that I got to tell my CFO who that is. I have a data table that tells Power BI, hey, that customer ID is these customer names. So now I've told Power BI, hey, detail customer name and value quantity sold. So now I know my quantity sold in units. It also gives you percent of total. So I've got quantity sold and percent of total by my 4 customers, True Value, Home Depot, Lowe's, and Ace. I don't want 2 decimal places on my percent. So I can go down here to percent decimal and just type in 0. I set this up so large snowblowers are $750 a piece and small snowblowers are $500 a piece. So what I want to do is go, well, what was my average sale price? So to do that, we're going to do something cool. I'm going to go into my data table, my fact table. And in my fact table, I want to add a calculation that calculates my average revenue per unit. So I'm going to go to my fact table and I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a measure. And I'm going to go new measure. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name that dollar per unit. Then I'll go back and click my cursor to the other side of the equal sign. Now I want to take my sale amount divided by my quantity sold. Now this is called DAX, or data analysis expression. It's the equivalent of an Excel formula, but you're doing it in what's called DAX. Now I can't just take sale amount divided by quantity sold. I have to give it an operator, just like in Excel. My operator is sum. Once you do your operator, Power BI will automatically go, oh, okay, what do you want to sum? Oh, thanks. This makes it easy. It gives me a drop-down box. I want to sum my fact table sale amount. So I click that, hit tab, and then close parenthesis. I'm going to do a division sign, operator, sum, tab, drop down to my fact table quantity sold, tab to select, close parenthesis. There's a little checkbox here that I can click when I'm done. It has created a measure. You won't see it here because it's actually here under my fact table. I'm going to select $sign and make that a currency, and I want 2 decimals. So now that that's built, I go back to my report screen. I'm going to grab one more card, and now I'm going to go grab that under fact table, under my fields. Hey, there's the dollar per unit I just created. I'm going to drag that in, and boom, I have an average unit price of $594.15 based on my mix of large and small snowblowers at $750 and $500 a piece. I saved the best for last. Under visualizations, there is a little 3 dots here. I'm going to click get more visuals, and I'm going to go import a visual from a file. I saved that heat map, and I'm going to click that and I'm going to open it. My heat map is right here. Now I'm going to select that heat map. I'm going to uncollapse my dim location, and I'm going to do state. Location ID, I'm going to grab state. I'm going to drop it in. I've told it where I want to map. Now I'm going to tell it what to map. So I'm going to drag sales amount into my value. It looks like this. And appropriately so, Minnesota had the highest concentration of snowblowers sold, the darkest. Colorado second, New York third, and Washington, Seattle fourth. You can see how it's hotter where more units were sold in the colder areas. So this gives you a very basic dashboard you might give to a CFO. I'll finish with the best way to learn Power BI is go find some data you've been dying to put into a dashboard and start playing around.
Well, that was a lot of work, and John made it a lot of fun. Hopefully you will take John's advice and go find some data and start playing around. We set the video up with chapters to allow you to use it as a reference tool as you develop your skills in Power BI. We want to remind you that the content in this video is for you. If there is anything that is not clear, if there is something you need us to elaborate on, if you have any suggestions, we would love to hear from you. You can reach us at the number or email on the screen, and we will get back to you. Please check out our library of videos and simple-to-use tools on the site. They are for you. The videos will walk you through additional topics such as financial planning and analysis, how to shorten your closing cycle, and how to execute an effective business meeting. Our goal is to support you in becoming the best financial leader you can be. Thanks again from the entire team at Forecaster.